Hello, and welcome to another video. Here we're playing some Rage Juggernaut with Enrage Crush. My first attempt at this was a fail. Apparently I was playing Vengeance with Enrage Crush, and as soon as I realized that, I just left the match, of course. It was very disappointing. I hate that there's no way to swap your spec and or gear. Most of the time, sometimes you can swap your tacticals and your talents before the match starts, but with loadouts now, I feel like you should be able to swap your spec. I feel like that wouldn't be too crazy for them to implement outside of, obviously, don't let somebody swap from tank to DPS or don't let somebody swap from DPS to heal. I think that would be completely fine, but also at the same time, I don't really see any reason to have a restriction on that, actually, even for like tank and heal. Like, I feel like that's completely kind of redundant, but at the same time, I suppose, yeah, no, actually, everything I think of is like there's argument points as to why that doesn't really matter. It is just a casual mode, so I feel like if somebody goes in unprepared or something like that, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. You do have time to swap things, being able to, spawn a legacy bay and like the spawn or something. I feel like shouldn't also like be an issue. Grab your gear and fix things if you make a mistake. You've already got a lockout. I don't really think the lockout's a big deal. Obviously, I think 15-minute lockout for the first thing is a little silly. I think 5 minutes should really just be the starting 5, 15, 30 to maybe an hour, and then go for an hour to 2 hours, 3 hours. Stuff like that. I really think the lockout system is still far too harsh. However, I totally understand why it's in place. Anyway, getting into this match, there is a double Premade on the enemy team, which is fine. Last match was also the same thing, except for I was playing the completely wrong spec, but now I'm playing the right spec. There's a reason why I want to play Rage, and you're kind of seeing it right now. This is exactly why I want to play Rage. I do not want to play Vengeance. There is no cleave to be had here. I am pretty much the only frontline for my team. I don't really mind that I'm getting tunneled. It's kind of like what they should be doing, but also at the same time, it does go a little far with what they're doing to me. But I mean, that is the nature of having pretty much a double group. And for the double group here, it doesn't look like they're running like a 4-man. It just looks like there's like two mans, which is fine. So it's basically just a solid Premade versus just one person. What happened there is that I was mad dashing mid-leap. I got pulled. I got pulled through the wall too, so that looks really weird on my screen. I can't imagine what it looked like for them. They're probably like, what the heck is he doing? He's literally just sinking and flying through there. I appreciate it for those who are, trying for the most part. It's really the only reason I'm able to make any sort of impact in like trying the front line for our team, because the rest of our team doesn't really seem too interested. That's okay. I am, for the most part, sufficiently keeping them at bay, which is something that's really important, because these people pretty much always play like double sword or stuff like that in general, and bully these people that don't really understand what they're doing. I don't really feel like you need to play Madness to do that, and I also don't feel like you need to double stack Madness to do that. Double Torturous Tactics is quite annoying to deal with, much less if they decide to start using Death Brand. But I guess that goes to the nature of like anybody playing a 2-man. So for example, if we were playing 2 Rage Jugs, yeah, I'm sure people would have the same complaints there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, really, I'd be more annoyed with the range, like people stacking snipers and sorcerers. I feel like those are the most obnoxious and most oppressive classes for AV8. But when it comes to like more than like a 2-stack, like melee is really strong. And then also, if you got 2 really good melee players, then it's arguably just as oppressive, but there is some counterplay because they're still squishy. Madness is relatively tanky, and even if you do tunnel them, you're not doing a crazy amount of damage. You might kill them, but it's not like extremely effective for the most part. This situation is really unfortunate for me, getting stuck over here with all of them. However, since we are on the attacker, I can kind of like keep their attention. If they actually care about winning, they would definitely not do what they're doing to me right now. But, regardless, I'm getting pulled hatred like crazy. I don't know if you guys are watching. Pretty much any time they use force, or not force screen, but force lightning on me, I'm just stacking it up like crazy. which is the main reason why I wanted to play Rage. Rage is just really good into this kind of nonsense. And since it was so late at night, there's pretty much no other way to avoid these guys, which is, again, to me, it's fine. I don't really mind. But the whole topic of kind of like how people play games now, at least in Warzones, is that most people will give up and they just won't fight. If somebody else will do the fighting for them, they will just let them do that, and the matches usually end up being not so great. I don't think that they're having fun, particularly just fighting me over and over again, and I'm not having particularly a super enjoyable time just playing against them over and over either. But that's just the nature of the game. This is why I do feel like sometimes, you know, if the queue is like this, there's no real reason to have a group. But then at the same time, if you do want to make a group and the other group decides to log out, it's not as fun. Or if they decline or just don't queue, they queue while you're in a match, you know, there's things like that that just happen consistently, and it's just weird. I don't know why people are like this. You want to play, play. Want to play other groups, play other groups. You don't want to play other groups, don't play other groups. Don't say that you do and then don't. Doesn't make any sense. Much less people that want to queue up a solo. There's a lot of solo queue players that actually are pretty decent in this game that actually queue up, and they get into matches like these and they're just not so fun. And then other times, you know, they'll get on a match that already has a Premade against another Premade, and obviously it becomes more of a landslide because that one solo queue player can actually make the landslide difference. Anything to avoid basically the ideal of like bringing back 8 stacks again, like anything to avoid that would be great. And really the only way to solve that riddle is to get the pugs more interested in actually fighting. And I think that is arguably something extremely hard to do because every single Premade that's pretty much playing to abuse newer players is always going to discourage players from actually wanting to learn. So for example, when you're like using your whole group just to tunnel one person in particular, or one person that is going to cause you problems in particular, for example, what these guys are doing, I'm the only problem really, so they're just going to tunnel me. Imagine if this is happening to somebody that wasn't very good, they're going to be able to tunnel them out, and then they're also going to be able to tunnel out anybody else that they also need to at the same time. That's not fun, not even remotely fun. Which gets a lot of the new players out of the game, and also gets a lot of solo queue players out of the game, which I don't think is good for the game, like in general. This is why you'll see most of my videos are solo queue, and if I am queuing group, I'm trying to convince another group, and that's pretty much it. Inevitably, with the way the queue system works and how easy it is to dodge each other, when it comes to trying to play against another group, they decide that they just don't want to. They can quite literally just do that, which is very unfortunate. But other than that, key things to really think about when you're playing Rage 2, like let's say you're playing against these people, which is Arena Darkness. They typically like to play Sorks a lot. That's fine, that's the classes they like to play. Classes that will be really good into Sorcerer, just to give you guys a chance. Like if you feel like you can't beat these people, they are very much so easy to beat. It's just the fact that people just have been mentally beaten down to the point that they think that they can't, and they don't even try. All you've really got to do is play 1 Carnage Marauder. It's great. APPT, it's great. Rage Jug. All 3 specs extremely great at dealing with them. If you don't play melee, that's totally fine. The specs that you'd want to play is Virulence. Virulence would be really good. Engineering would be very good. Here I'm just kind of getting annoyed. I'm like, okay, my team didn't want to help me out at all. This round's going to be even worse. I already know it's coming. And then for like the third range that you would probably want to play against these classes. I'm trying to think. I'm like blanking on specs right now. I know there's IO Arsenal. do honestly feel like Arsenal wouldn't be bad, but also IO wouldn't be bad. The issue really is that Mercenary becomes more of like a punching bag for melee players. So we do that with Grand Assault, and Madness is actually not too bad into Mercenary when it comes to them actually doing damage to you. So Mercenary sometimes can be a pretty decent like class to play too at the same time. Burning Bright tactically should be running. I know a lot of people end up running Primed Ignition. Don't do that. Primed Ignition is not going to get you like anything in PvP. You can do some parsing games where it can be cool, but 9 times out of 10 it'd be much better for you to run Primed Ignition because you can dispatch your opponents way faster. You can get rid of the people that are tunneling you a lot faster, which is way more important. We ended up getting Frosty backfilling, I think it is. That's what happened here, because we didn't have him in the first round, and it makes this so much easier for me. Rage Chuck with Predation against Sorks, like, if he was here from the beginning of the match, this match would have been nowhere near as close as it is right now. Because the way the match started out is 3 DPS versus just pretty much me, really. And there's somebody else really trying. Yes, Pure Destiny like tries a little bit, but they're mainly playing objectives. And I'm more so just playing frontline and trying to keep them away from objectives in general. I just want to fight, and those that want to fight can obviously join me. This is not a situation where you want to be if you're playing objectives, typically, because you're not anywhere near them, but it's fine. And then going into, again, what was the range specs? So even like Sorcerer, I guess is not really that bad. So like you have Virulence would be like a great spec. Lightning, Stormwatch, very good into them, especially with Halted Offense. Madness can also be pretty good, especially with the cooldown for speed, allow you to constantly reposition and make it very annoying for any of them to try to get to you, especially with other people hitting them. It makes it a lot easier. If you're not very good at kiting, highly recommend that talent. Kind of like removes all skill factor for the class. And then you also have just net in general. If you play Mercenary, I honestly feel like net is like the greatest thing that you can actually end up using. But getting back to the Primed Ignition versus Burning Bright can hit up to 130 to 140k, even 100k on tanks. That's insane amount of damage. And if your Heat Seekers and Rail Shot end up critting too, which Rail Shot pretty much always crits because you have the auto crit for Rail Shot. Getting your Heat Seeker to crit was a little bit harder, but if you take the crit hit chance on it, I think it is, or the crit hit damage on it, don't really get a better chance if it's crit hit damage. I'm pretty sure it might be the crit hit chance. He just picks a root here for some reason. I don't know what's going on here. But if you get that, and you get all 3 of those abilities, the crit, you're pretty much doing almost 250 to like 300k of somebody's health and like 3 GCDs. And they are a little bit delayed, so the burst is kind of gonna hit them all at the same time as it flies through the air, which is superb. So that's one thing to think about. Arsenal is not bad. IO can be pretty good. IO, I feel like you have to channel a lot, so maybe avoid that one unless you're able to actually cast. Madness will be good with the 4-speed talent. Also, you can run Deathbrand. Deathbrand's very good against annoying stuff like this. And then you also have Virulence. Virulence is probably the best just in general. Engineering can also be very good. Engineering is probably going to be hardest. If you're looking for like the easiest range play or range classes to play to deal with like premades like this, I highly recommend Madness. Madness is very easy. It's got like 5 buttons. And then you've got Virulence. It's got like 5 buttons for DPS rotation. Its defensives are the hard part, so do take that with a grain of salt. Absorb gives you damage reduction, so just use it on cooldown whenever you're taking damage. Stay in cover as much as you can so you get the cover heal. Roll. You want to roll damage, that's very important. And then evasion. Evasion is really good against a lot of classes, but any class that has like a stacking damage buff. Think like Energy Burst, for example. It's not very effective. Obviously, you can still pop evasion. It's still going to mitigate most of the thermal detonator unless it has the stacking damage buff on top of it, and then it's still going to do a decent amount of damage to you. But for the most part, evasion usually will do quite a bit for you. I don't go over in the corner again because we are actually kind of getting pushed back a little bit, and I just want to make sure that we don't just get capped on, because I don't want them to actually escape the where they are. They're kind of being imprisoned for the way that they play. They like to just tunnel one person typically, and not giving them what they want for a few seconds is not that big of a deal. I feel like it definitely helps our team prevent losing the door there. I feel like if I wasn't here, definitely would have got that door. And then we go back to hitting them again afterwards. We just kind of have to. And that will force them to kite back a little bit. But for the most part, we do have a second DPS now, which makes things a little easier. But again, for those curious, if you play like a duo, and there's like another duo giving you a trouble too. I know there's a lot of people that do play duo. Some of the best duos in the game is definitely Immortal and Rage Jug. Like pretty much anything plus a tank is just in general good. Unless it's like a range, and then it's kind of like just a pain. There's a lot of attention to you. And then things like Hatred, PT Tank, stuff like that. Like typically anything that will enable the melee is like really good. And if you're just playing double DPS, you're looking at things like lightning plus pyro, or madness plus virulence, stuff like that. Anything that will complement the other in a way will be really good. And if you want to deal with like ranged players, virulence madness is probably like one of the best. Virulence Stormwatch, really good. I wouldn't recommend marksmanship, even though I was playing it the other day. It's kind of fun, but it has a lot of channeling, so typically anything you can avoid channeling a captain on ends up being really good. And then here's just like another showcase of like how they play. They like to run super far back, which is part of their class, right? Don't get me wrong, but there's so many different ways that they could actually kite. And in this situation, it's just trying to lure people into a situation where they can just bully them like 1vx. We all go in at the same time. It's not as bad, but they'll definitely lean back to give themselves more time to basically recover, which is not a bad strategy in general. But for new players, it's kind of rough. Obviously against new players, they're probably not going to just jump into there. So this guy's going to full recover and just pressure them again. And those new players are probably just never really going to realize. Then obviously the overload through mad dash thing. Someday that'll be fixed, I hope. Other than that, yeah. Brutal game, but just kind of like the normal experience. Other than that, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.